Well, come on guys, I'm going to show you the former home of City Academy, the first home, which was this Market Recreation Center.
On May 22nd, 1991, the chartered school bill finally passed the Minnesota legislature. It was not your normal legislative journey, believe me. And wouldn't you know that City Academy would be the first charter school in the nation, opened September 7th, 1992.
I remember my first day at City Academy. I walked in and it was the first time anyone had ever asked me what I would like to do after high school.
The requirement that teachers be in charge, that they make up the majority of the board, seemed the height of responsibility and professionalism, so that was a real drawing card for us.
Here was the main room, one of the classrooms, and the huge kitchen.
City Academy is really a pioneer. It is the template for chartering in this country. And so Milo and her team had to go out and find space. That was something the city was willing to help with. Well, they also need a little extra funding, and so they engaged their students to go out, and they got some funding from a utility in the neighborhood.
First thing we were looking for was that students were in charge of choosing, where they wanted to go to school and had a say in how that would look, and that teachers were there because they chose to be there, not because they were assigned to be there. The charter legislation was the absolute right match for us. Our starting students, the founding students, were out of the system. There were very few options for our beginning students.
City Academy was very important and very vital to my life and the person I am today.
And I don't really think of us as first but part of, an experience that many people in this state shared.
So when Minnesota started to get serious about passing a charter law, my ears perked up, and Senator Dernberger, my boss, the challenge he gave me was come up with some legislation creating an appropriate role for the federal government, basically a state initiative, and let's use that to educate people and try to get more states to pass charter school laws. The timing was good to frame the issue in the way that we did, as a new, safe middle ground for Republicans and Democrats to come together in support of state-based education reform.
Jon Schroeder developed a plan where the federal government, the Congress, could provide dollars to schools and to states for grants for startup funding for chartered schools. So in other words, they were now an incentive for the states to pass innovative new laws around chartering.
There was a very interesting and very significant bipartisan team that got assembled here, and Senator Dernberger and Senator Kennedy, who was the chair of the Senate committee. That was an absolutely critical moment in the history of charter schools. A Republican and a Democrat, Dernberger and Kennedy working together and with the Clinton administration in ways that we don't see now. We also set this up in a way that the grants went to the state rather than to schools or to school districts.
The legislation passed finally in 1994 when charter schools were able to get startup funding, and many, many millions of dollars have been given throughout the years for that program. And so Jon then became a voice for chartering in many states as they were trying to pass their laws. And in fact, I think he said that he probably had a part in over 20 states in the passage of their chartering laws.
Now, we called our very first bill the Public School Redefinition Act, because that's what we were doing. We were redefining public education.
So this is really the brainchild of my wife, Dr. Ella Mahmoud. She wanted to start a school. So we incubated our first program in our home with about 10 children. And after about a year, our parents just demanded that we expanded our program So we found an old building, renovated it into a school. As our children were beginning to graduate from our preschool program, we found that they weren't being challenged academically, and that's when we decided to start our elementary school, which was called Harvest Preparatory School. We now have about 1,000 children that we serve in 5 programs. They share the same mission, and that mission is to instruct, empower, enable, and guide African American children to achieve superior academic, social, and moral development.
Good. Give yourselves a hand. Good job. Say thank you, Mr. Mahmoud.
Thank you, Mr. Mahmoud.
Scholars, outstanding. You almost had me crying over here.
So when Eric Mahmoud chartered his first school in 1998, it was everything we had hoped it would be. He was able to build high-quality education right into the neighborhood of North Minneapolis, to the point where he could have multiple schools.
About 95% of our students are graduating from high school, and about 80% of them are going on to college. So it's pretty phenomenal in comparison to what you find in a typical school around this neighborhood.
I want to thank those scholars that are looking forward. Thank you. Excellent job.
The charter school law basically gave us an opportunity to experiment with ideas, innovate, and really implement some things that we find were not in the typical school district.
I reduced my fraction and I divided both of them by 5. And then
they admire him. I think they want to emulate him in many ways because of his ability to be focused, to be sincere, and to be clear about what his goals are for them.
In many ways, Eric Mahmoud is the example of all chartering is meant to be: high quality and innovative, both in one. And he's just been a tremendous leader in our community, and I cannot think of a better candidate for the National Charter Schools Hall of Fame.